What are the most important takeaways regarding veteran players from the buzz of the NFL Combine? And what are the prospects who are rising and falling at these skill positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end? It's time to break it down all for you right here as we begin another week on Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. We're getting ready. The franchise tag deadline is coming up on Tuesday. The NFL Combine is in the book. So what we'll do here is look at the major rumors here. So we know we have Aaron Rodgers and Amari Cooper and things that are coming out of the Combine where we'll have some resolutions here for the offseason. Some things don't look like they'll change at all, but we're going to go through that. We'll start with our first segment looking at the veteran quarterbacks. Then we'll end the show looking at the prospects, what we learned from the skill position players, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end there from the on-field workouts regarding the NFL draft. But we know the Combine is twofold. All the general managers and coaches there for the most part, minus the Rams, they're attending and looking closely at the prospects, but also talking about potential moves they can make here in upcoming free agency. And we know the legal tampering period starts here a week from right now. So excited about that. And we know there's going to be a lot of players on the move. Will Aaron Rodgers be one of them? We'll break that down for you here on this episode. And this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered the season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so let's start with the elephant in the room, and he's in Green Bay. And that's Aaron Rodgers here. What is he going to decide here? Apparently, 3 teams are on the table for Aaron Rodgers that are not the Packers, that he's negotiated a deal with his agent to move to these teams, if necessary. If the Packers don't meet his demands here, whatever they are, beyond being the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, whatever he wants from them, he's got his other teams in place. No surprise here. The Broncos are one of them with the offensive coordinator that used to be in Green Bay as the head coach, Nathaniel Hackett. He also has Justin Alton, the tight end coach. So Broncos have been long rumored because of that connection. You'd think they hired Hackett with something in mind to recruit Rodgers here. So they're in play. The Steelers, we know Rodgers and Mike Tomlin had a little bit of a smile there when they played each other. So we knew he was going to be playing the Steelers to potentially replace Ben Roethlisberger. And finally, the Titans. This was created by his moving to Nashville. Right now, the Titans, John Robinson, their GM, Mike Vrabel, their head coach, have been sitting on the fact that Ryan Tannehill is their starting quarterback. So looks like it's 4 destinations for Rodgers that make sense. Broncos, you know why. They think they can upgrade big time, keep up with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, the Chiefs and Chargers, as well as the Raiders, who made the playoffs last season. So they feel like Aaron Rodgers can put them over the top with their new coach here, Hackett. While you look at the Steelers, they could be a quarterback away, upgrade from Ben Roethlisberger to go from barely a playoff team here for the second consecutive season under Mike Tomlin to being a favorite in the tough AFC North where the AFC champion Bengals reside. So we know why they're there. The Titans, they like Ryan Tannehill, but Rodgers with that running game, with that offensive line, some of the weapons, including A.J. Brown, could take that team to a next level playing off the defense. So these teams make a lot of sense for Rodgers' services here in 2022. We'll see. I still think the house money really is best on going him back to Green Bay or taking him back to Green Bay, however we want to phrase that. But I think he's still going to be a Packer here. Devontae Adams, that franchise tag, I think he's using a bit of leverage and power here to try to say, look, take care of Devontae Adams, whether it's with a tag or a long-term deal, preferably the latter that pays him as the highest paid wideout in the NFL. So a lot to be determined with Rodgers. We will break. If Rodgers goes to a team that isn't the Packers, we'll break in with a special show here on Locked On Fantasy Football dedicated to that. We know before we broke into this NFL Combine results and chatter here, we were doing our series there, so we'll have to pick it up here, looking at the biggest offseason questions among the teams across the league. We're leaving next here on the AFC South. We'll get to them eventually, maybe He'll be tying in with Rodgers here if he ends up being a Titan. So stay tuned there. Russell Wilson, the expectation is that from Pete Carroll and John Schneider that he's going to stay in Seattle. I know the Commanders were thrown out, but he also went on the Today Show and said that he was not interested in moving east. He's a Richmond, Virginia native. That's why the Commanders came up, and the Commanders also need a quarterback, but they're ready if Wilson were to become available from the other Washington to go from Seattle to the nation's capital. They'll be ready, but I don't think Russell Wilson is going to be on the move at all this offseason. I think Pete Carroll also stays put, and the Seahawks do their best to reconstruct a team that was pretty awful defensively last year. Try to keep the offense intact. That's not as big of a problem as the defense there for Carroll. Jimmy Garoppolo has a bit of a shoulder issue, but that's not expected to keep him from being moved. There's an outside shop the 49ers could keep him here and just have him as a expensive backup to Trey Lance for one season. But they could also go for a cheap veteran backup, but Joe Flacco has been mentioned as well. So Jimmy Garoppolo, again, should be on the move here for the 49ers if they find the right partner. There's plenty of teams that need a quarterback. The Cardinals, for now, don't look like they're going to budge on Kyler Murray, so you might have to play under protest or not play at all. So we'll watch that this season. He wants a new contract extension. On that front, the general manager, Steve Keim, and the head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, got their extensions, but those are different. Those are not nearly as pricey, and those don't take a lot of calculation here because Kyler Murray was the number one overall pick in 2019, so you would expect to be the highest paid quarterback, but I don't think he's necessarily played into that yet. And for most of these quarterbacks, it's good to see them play for one more year and then get the extension in most cases here. And I think that's what the Cardinals want out of Kyler Murray. On that same related front here, you look at Lamar Jackson. He's waiting for his deal. He's not concerned. He'll play as a free agent. So he's betting on himself a little bit, which is a bit risky, but we've seen Kirk Cousins do it before with Washington and really cash in. So Lamar, pretty confident. He represented himself there. I think he's feeling good here that the Ravens will have to kind of match his demands in the market. Now, that's ideal. The biggest problem has been injury. If someone gets hurt, how is that going to affect things? But now you have a precedent here with Dak Prescott. He had a major ankle injury while he was franchise tagged. Did it stop the Cowboys from signing him to a big deal? No, it didn't. If they like him and they think he's got the high ceiling as a quarterback, he's going to stay put. So Lamar Jackson, two different approaches here. Lamar a little bit ahead, we know, as a draft pick, and he was also number 32 overall, so waiting to leverage to match the market. Probably is going to involve Murray and what he gets as well. So no reason to worry about Lamar. This is what he wants. He's not going to have it hanging over his head, this contract distraction or anything like that. He's going to make the Ravens cave into his demand. So interesting flip on the script here from Murray to Jackson. So I think right now Murray, Jackson, they're in action as well as Wilson, but Rodgers 50-50 to leave now with the new information, and Jimmy Garoppolo staying put. Now, Carson Wentz, he's been a much debated topic here. He was pretty good for the most part in the stretch run where they didn't make the playoffs. That's what's left a bad taste in the mouth here for Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, the general manager. But how can they move Wentz? They can dump him and move on. But I think the biggest thing they could do is at least bring in some rookie competition for Wentz. So if they have to transition, much like the Eagles did from Wentz to Hurts, they have that contingency in place. Speaking of Jalen Hurts, he's been banged up a little bit. There was some talk about the Eagles looking at a quarterback too with the 3 first-round picks in the middle there. But they're satisfied with Jalen Hurts. They like what he did. Howie Roseman, the general manager, confirmed that. So there's nothing they're going to change on Hurts. With Wentz, I think the biggest thing is, can they get an upgrade that they feel confident about? People turn out Mitchell Trubisky and Jimmy Garoppolo for the Colts. Do those things really make them that much better versus taking a shot there? The problem is with their quarterback pursuit, no first-round pick. They lost it to the Eagles because of Wentz. So Wentz actually played well enough and participated in enough games where that turned into a first-round pick. So Wentz has handcuffed the Colts twice here. We'll see if they move on. They said all things are on the table here on options, but it really requires someone wanting to take Wentz here in 2022. Kirk Cousins has been the subject of some speculation here with his hefty contract, but the Vikings are in a bind to get out of it. And you have Kevin O'Connell here, who runs an offense kind of adjacent when you look at Sean McVay to Kyle Shanahan. We know that Cousins came up with Kyle Shanahan here, really boosting his stock here with Washington. So Cousins is expected to stay put at least for one more season. The Vikings would rather not force themselves into the quarterback conversation in the draft. They got a lot of needs up there. So But Cousins, they want to keep some status quo with this passing offense where Justin Jefferson's going to take it to another level. So they're going to stick with Cousins. You have Derek Carr. Earlier, we had Josh McDaniels say we're sticking with Derek Carr, starting quarterback, but a lot of teams have inquired about Carr. The Raiders have to determine, can they get decent return and can they go in a better direction for some higher upside? Carr gives them a pretty high floor. He helped them get in the playoffs, but to do more than that, a lot of question marks there. Now, we talked about Jeremy Garoppolo a little bit. Well, Trey Lance, every vote of confidence coming from John Lynch, the general manager of San Francisco. So Lance looking like the starting quarterback, Garoppolo on the move, like we expected, but that's something we're definitely going to watch here this offseason. And Mitchell Trubisky is getting a lot of buzz here as a potential starter, and some people said he could get $10 million. I don't see it at all. Just 1 year behind Josh Allen there and Brian Dable. I just don't see people wanting to put Trubisky in there because you have to examine the question. If you're the Commanders, is Mitchell Trubisky all that much better than Taylor Heineke? And that's what you have to look. Do we downgrade if we have Carson Wentz to Trubisky? So you look at all these situations. Is this quarterback actually better than who we have? And I find that hard to say about Trubisky, where the Bears were so quick to move from him last year. I don't think one offseason of playing behind somebody and full season makes you that much better. I think if he was a later round pick, I would not see this happening with Trubisky. So weird, but I still think of the Giants are the best spot with Brian Dable, potentially competing there for the starting job with Daniel Jones. That would be interesting to me because Jones, you still haven't committed to. You're not picking up the option. He's on a rookie deal. So you can give Trubisky a little bit more, see who the best quarterback for your future and this offense are going to be. Dable is going to have a little bit of a soft spot there for Trubisky, a free agent, and no trades involved there. He can sign with any team, and the Bills expecting to lose him here in 2022. All right, in our next segment, we'll break down things that are going on with the big-name wide receivers that we've heard from the Combine, and then a little bit on the running backs and a little bit on tight end as well here. And then we'll look at all these skill positions in order: quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and tight end, how these top prospects fared in the 2022 NFL Combine ahead of the draft. Before we do that, football season is over for now, and we know that, but that also means we're into March, and that means we got to keep our resolutions here as best as possible here. Yeah, we're still thinking about January here, so it might be a while since we played the Super Bowl, but it's March. We want to stick to our resolutions, and you can eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? You haven't? You're missing out on one of Built's best tasting bars, so check it out. Puffs are the first ever protein infused candy bar. They're just awesome here that tastes fully like a candy bar, but then your food, it's a protein bar. Yep. Puffs are part of the beautiful and delicious family here at Built. So excited about that for sure, that Puffs are a nice alternative there to the bars, and they're just as delicious. They're all covered in 100% chocolate. They're a treat for you, just like a candy bar, but they're really a protein bar. So that's awesome. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: yummy cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. All these are so good, they're going to be your new favorites among the Built Bar. And just like all the Built Bars, as I mentioned, covered in 100% real chocolate. That includes the Puffs, low-calorie, high-protein. Replace your candy bars with these better-tasting candy bars that are also protein bars. They're better. A typical real candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Check out the macros on a Built Bar if you go to their site. 130 calories, 4 grams sugar, only 4 grams net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. When you look at a candy bar, turn it around: 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Great flavors all around. You can try mint brownie, coconut almond. These are just some of the flavors here that you can check out. They're always coming out with new flavors there for their traditional Built Bars as well as their Puffs. So check them out at Built Bar. Built Bar, they're all about the taste. If they can find a way to make something delicious, they will figure it out and then put it all together in a very delicious and healthy bar. Go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, we will continue the show here in a moment, but I do have to give you an update. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL here on the network. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the league, and they're locked here going to free agency every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available, just like you get Locked On Fantasy Football wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll talk more about BetOnline and what they're offering right now as we go into our final segment, looking at the draft prospects. But now it's time to look at the other veteran rumors swirling. The other news out of the combine that was pretty big is Amari Cooper. Looks like the Cowboys want to make sure they secure Michael Gallup and Dalton Schultz and Cedric Wilson here, all three free agents here. So the way they can do that, they prefer to have three guys in their offense here versus sacrifice them with the contract that Cooper has. And we know CeeDee Lamb, being a first-round pick, is also in line for a big contract soon. So they got to move one of these contracts. Cooper makes a lot of sense because he allows them to sign those three players most likely. So Cowboys are going to do some finagling. They also have to worry about Randy Gregory on their defense. They like to bring him back for the pass rush. So there are some priorities here. They got to hack away at some cap, and Cooper is the best way to do that. To make their team the best possible can be, you have to sacrifice Cooper here. And I think, look at Amari Cooper. He's done some good things, but you look at CeeDee Lamb, great versatility. I think he's better than Cooper at this point. You also have Michael Gallup, a better deep threat outside. Cedric Wilson has been pretty good as well, filling in for Gallup. So they feel like he can take the next step here. They also like using Dalton Schultz with Blake Jarwin. So looks pretty good here for Amari Cooper to be let go by the Cowboys. Right now, there are no offers, and that's probably the Cowboys overplaying their hand a little bit. I think Amari Cooper's value is limited away from this offense. He's getting a little bit older. He fit really well in this offense, but there are some question marks there with his drops and all that stuff. So Amari Cooper probably going to be straight up released. Teams will be more aggressive to get him. He would really look good in Green Bay, wouldn't he? At a decent price there with Davante Adams. So a lot of teams would be in the mix for Cooper. They just don't want to trade assets for his big contract here. They want to restructure and get the contract they need, given their salary cap situations, and you can get that if Cooper is released. Jarvis Landry is trying to get out of Cleveland here. We know that. We'll see what happens if they can align it. The Browns need to secure some wide receiver help after Odell Beckham Jr.'s released in the middle of last season. Rashard Higgins disappointing there with the drop-off. Anthony Schwartz not healthy. So they really need Jarvis Landry, but he's getting a little bit older. I think they'll try to move on from him anyway and get a good deal on some younger receivers. Then you look at the Saints. We thought Michael Thomas might be done in New Orleans, but they quietly got his deal kind of adjusted here. So Michael Thomas looks like he's going to be the fold here. That's going to help whoever's a quarterback. James Winston's a free agent. Taysom Hill still signed here. So what do they do here? So that would indicate that Thomas coming back. Maybe they'll get a complimentary receiver, but they also like Marquez Callaway. So that opens up a little bit more possibility-wise in the first round of the draft, not having to lock in to wide receiver here. Maybe think about the offensive line with Teron Armstead being a free agent. Maybe they'll look at a quarterback replacement and upgrade to the mess with Winston and Taysom Hill from 2021. Davante Adams is going to get the franchise tag at least. He could command up to $20 million, more than that per season if he gets done here. So Packers have to make a lot of moves there, but they got to franchise tag Adams to have any shot of keeping Rodgers here. Chris Godwin, good chance he gets a franchise tag here for the Buccaneers. They need to keep him. They don't want to do it that way. They do have Carlton Davis they have to worry about at corner, Ryan Jensen at center that they're going to try to keep, and Jordan Whitehead at safety and some other free agents. But Godwin is the priority, and they'll do it with a tag if needed here in Tampa for whoever the new quarterback is. Let's not hold our breath that Tom Brady's coming out of retirement, but the new quarterback will need Mike Evans and Chris Godwin along with that offensive line to really lift them. Did take a blow in that offensive line, so it could be a couple losses here because Jensen is a free agent. They picked him up big time with the contract from the Ravens. Is he done without Brady? And then you had Ali Marpet. He was a Pro Bowl interior lineman. Their guard there next to Jensen. He retired. So they've got some offensive line concerns there in Tampa. So they prefer, again, to sign Godwin and maybe tag Jensen, but I think it's going to be difficult now in the 11th hour before the franchise tag deadline on Tuesday. Rondell Moore and Christian Kirk. These are two Cardinals receivers. It doesn't look like they have any interest in bringing out A.J. Green. You've heard a lot about Zach Ertz. The Cardinals want to keep him because he was such a key tight end target for Kyler Murray. And you also have the questions about Max Williams coming off a knee injury. So looks like Ertz is a priority. Rondell Moore they're happy with. So Kirk could be the odd person out. There was this picture that resurfaced here with him going on vacation with two notable quarterbacks, Sam Darnold and Josh Allen, guys that have connected through their kind of training sessions here. So Christian Kirk, he might be in play for the Panthers here if they move Robbie Anderson. There's some interest from the Patriots, according to multiple sources here, that Anderson may be on move here. They do have Terrace Marshall there to play off DJ Moore with Darnold, but Christian Kirk, someone to watch out there, maybe landing with Darnold and the Panthers or as that option to replace Emmanuel Sanders and or Cole Beasley here. They're playing off Gabriel Davis and Stephon Diggs. So Kirk will watch for Buffalo. That would clearly upgrade his status here if he can get a key third target there, working in with Dawson Knox between Diggs and Davis here in 2022. Talking about Michael Gallup, he might be sitting pretty for some really nice fantasy value here. It looks like the Cowboys are finishing up a deal with him to keep him in town with Amari Cooper headed out. So Gallup, that's great news for him because he can operate as the number 2 with Lamb, make some big plays. All the key thing is for him to stay healthy. It's different when it's Gallup and Wilson in there. That upgrades him a little bit. And Dalton Schultz looks like he'll be back as well. Cowboys look like they preferred those 2 guys than Cooper. So very interesting development there that we look at there. Now, at running back, speaking of the Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott is going to return here, but will they add some depth with him and Tony Pollard? We'll see. Saquon Barkley, the Giants got rid of Devontae Booker. They do have a Gary Brightwell, but he was disappointing last year as a rookie backup. So Saquon Barkley, not a commitment to long-term here. We'll see. I think they'll add a competing back here that is a change of pace a little bit for the Giants to really push Saquon Barkley to see if he's out of the mix here in New York. All right, so a lot of good stuff there when we look at wide receivers and running backs a little bit and tight ends. Not a lot of buzz about running backs. We know that in general, the supply and demand says not a lot there, but wide receiver and a little bit they're looking at Schultz are things we're going to look at. And we also know Rob Gronkowski is looking at the Bills. That's his hometown team, so he could play here still in the NFL. There's some talk about him joining the Bengals as well, so we'll see what Gronk does there. And Mike Gesicki, the Dolphins want to keep him, maybe through the franchise tag. We'll see what happens there. But there's a good look at the players that were talked about and buzzed about here at the NFL Combine here. So, look, we're waiting on the action until next season, but we're going to talk a lot about the offseason here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We know what action is coming up here. It's basketball season. It's full steam. We know the madness of this month is beginning here with the conference tournaments heading into the NCAA tournament. You also have NBA getting exciting here, very exciting. We don't know who's going to win the title. There's going to be the play-in tournament and then the regular playoffs here. So this is the time, March, April, to really focus in on basketball. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number 1 spot for your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. Not just basketball, BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC, right down to other sports, including golf. So check it out there at BetOnline.net. Hit the website today or use mobile devices to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, we will close the show. Let's get to their combine prospects here and look at what's going on. So let's look at it quickly. Malik Willis of Liberty, Desmond Ridder of Cincinnati. Great combines, great athleticism. Both guys trending towards maybe getting ahead of Kenny Pickett as early picks here. So now all of a sudden the Broncos and Panthers, they're picking in the top 10, are interested in a quarterback. So I had Malik Willis going to the Commanders. They're going to might have to fight it out a little bit. So, but the good news is people like Desmond Ridder as well. The Panthers are into him. So I told you at some point the quarterbacks were going to rev up here with the value and interest, and we saw the combine. So you have all of a sudden a look at these quarterbacks, and oh, we want some of these franchise guys. So the bottom line is they're cheap guys. If they have enough upside, they're better than going for a veteran bridge. And I think teams don't all understand this, but if you got a guy that you really like, put him out there in the field, and especially if you're picking later in this draft in the first round, that you're a better team, so you can feel better confidence about that having the supporting cast here. But looks like Willis and Ridder could go 1-2 off the board. At least Willis goes first, Pickett second, and Ridder third. So I think those look like the surefire first-round picks. Everyone else a little bit questionable, and Matt Corral didn't show up at the combine to work out because he had the ankle injury. Did do some measurements there, but that's about it here for Corral. So, look, I really like Ridder more and more when you look at the athleticism. And that's what I like about Willis and Ridder. They're going to give you that dual threat production. You look at Kenny Pickett. He ran the fastest 40 here, so he can run. He can provide some production there. We know that running quarterbacks provide a pretty high floor. So I'm excited about all those three if they land in good situations here right away to be fantasy football assets at quarterback to really increase the depth of that position. At wide receiver, it was a mixed bag of things, but Chris Olave of Ohio State, he really boosted stock. He had the longest stride there and great catches he made, as well as leading all the top prospects in the 40. So excited about him. Christian Watson there of North Dakota State showed off his size and strength, and he looks like a guy to contend with here as a big receiver. We had Traylon Burks, not having the greatest combine, neither did David Bell of Purdue. So Burks out of Arkansas. So we'll see how that shakes out. But right now, it's been Chris Olave, his teammate Garrett Wilson, who I also love. Both of these guys are pretty interchangeable here. Then you have the situation with Jameson Williams. Does he come back from that injury? But we'll see. But right now, the Ohio State guy is sitting really pretty in some order here to go first two off the board, with Williams maybe in between there or going right after those guys. And Traylon Burks, this should help some of the teams picking on the back end of the first round, maybe the Packers or Chiefs looking for some offensive help, that he could be out there for them with his size available later in the first round. So Burks is still late first round pick. I think Christian Watson comes up a little bit. Drake London of USC goes down a little bit here. Jahan Dotson, I think, really helped himself, a speedster from Penn State. So a lot of excitement on this wide receiver class. And really, there's going to be some impact players right away with their size and speed. And some have a combination of both. And those are the guys that go off like a Chris Olave here. That you look at the Raiders, you look at the Browns, you look at the Patriots. These are prime candidates there to get a wide receiver who can have an immediate impact in production and therefore for fantasy football here in 2022. At running back, two guys really shot up. Kenny Walker, the third there, Kenneth, of Michigan State, really fast 40, explosive, very athletic. We knew this kid was very productive from college. He's a feature back material, and we love him. There, Breece Hall, I thought, had a good one as well at the Combine. Iowa State, he's a guy on the rise quite a bit. So I think those are the two running backs that helped each other and helped themselves tremendously here, standing out among the crowd here. So the guys that didn't run as well, you had a 4.7 almost in the 40 there for Kyron Williams in Notre Dame. So it looks like another Dexter Williams, a late round pick from the Irish. It's not going to have a big impact unless he lands the right system. We're always looking for the Elijah Mitchells there who can be drafted later, but those are the system backs that we're looking for. And you look at another back that kind of disappointed was Isaiah Spiller of Texas A&M. He wasn't fully healthy. He's a power back, but he's like a power speed back where he's a pure speed guy. He's not necessarily the agile quickness. He's a big back who can run with the head of steam. Some people compared him to maybe a Derrick Henry type. I don't think it's there for him. So clearly, I think Walker and Hall are the best running backs here, and then downgrade those other guys a little bit at running back here in 2022. Now, tight ends, people were excited about Greg Dulcich, and he had a good performance there for UCLA. Very athletic, but a little bit older. I don't think he can give you much as a blocker. Jake Ferguson in Wisconsin on the flip side, really disappointed there as a receiver. The guys that you kind of are zoning in on, I still like Jalen Weidermeyer. I think he's a bit of a boomer bust pick because the hands are inconsistent, but I'm all in on Trey McBride still. I had him as a first-round pick in my latest mock going to the Dolphins. Should they move on from Gesicki? This guy's pretty polished, can make some big plays. Again, we usually have to wait, whether it's T.J. Hawkinson or other of these high-drafted tight ends, wait until year two to get the production. But I like this player a lot, McBride. I think I would side with the fact that Weidermeyer is just a great athlete, and I want to go after him. So McBride and Weidermeyer, to me, are the guys that you look at. And a little bit later in the draft, you could look at Isaiah Likely there and Charlie Kolar. So Likely out of Coastal Carolina and Charlie Kolar out of Iowa State are some guys I like on the move here as a little bit of a shake-up here, but you're looking for complete tight ends that can get on the field in some form for their teams, whether inline or offline, and I feel the best about that for the two guys I mentioned, McBride and Weidermeyer. All right, there you have it. There's a breakdown of the prospects that got the most buzz there at those skill positions. A very good combine overall for the skill positions, I think, with the speed. And maybe the 40 clock was a little bit fast here to help these guys, but we'll take it. We liked all the athleticism, speed, hands, and size, and speed, and quickness, and go on and on. I said speed twice because that's what we're most excited about at the combine. But yeah, looking at this class, I think people were down on it a little bit in terms of offense skill and what do you have there. I think a lot of attention was at cornerback, edge rusher, and these other positions. But offense is pretty good, and there's going to be some players, several players, that have fantasy football impact as rookies here in 2022. All right, we're talking NFL draft here, and guess what? We do have a show on the Locked On Network all tied to the draft here. It is called Locked On NFL Draft. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We'll be on track unless there's breaking news with Aaron Rodgers that we'll talk about the AFC South's biggest question marks here. They're looking at the four teams and breaking down division for you. But in the meantime, check out Locked On NFL Draft, hosted by Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker. They bring the NFL draft to life every day for you, post-combine, into the pro days with inside analysis and college football prospects and the NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So is Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks so much for listening here. This has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great day, and we should look at the AFC South or if Aaron Rodgers is on the move here on tomorrow's show.